Hey guys, welcome to the Wild Bits show. I'm Upamanyu,
And I'm Meghna.
and we have got a great show planned for you. We had taken a wee break over the last 2 weeks, and now we are back in full force. So, we have some very interesting topics today, starting with the headline topic where Gibraltar's monkeys are eating mud to avoid their upset stomachs, and which are being caused by junk food from tourists. And there's another quite interesting story where Water NSW, that's New South Wales, um, is in a scandalous decision. They've taken a decision, and that has caused quite a stir in the conservation and wildlife world. There is also some news from the zoo and captive animal front and how they're dealing with some high temperatures. And there are a few more interesting story. Meghna, what are those?
So we're also going to be talking about how Singapore actually is halting sourcing and breeding dolphins. We know how much SeaWorld and everything else is being talked about. There's so many documentaries on, cetaceans being captive, like blackfish. We're also going to be talking about how and why forest conservation is also public health. Like, why does forest conservation mean healthy living for us as well? Apart from that, we are going to be talking about some small topics, but one of the most interesting topics is that we have found out that sperm whales communication is really closely parallel to human language. So keep tuned in, and we're going to talk about all of these topics.
So, why don't we talk about the headline topic, which is the story comes from The Guardian. It says Gibraltar's monkeys eat mud, and in quotes, to avoid upset stomachs from tourist junk food. Gibraltar's Barbary macaques are exhibiting a fascinating behavior, eating soil. Researchers believe this practice, known as geophagy, is a response to the unhealthy snacks they receive from tourists. Monkeys with more tourist contact consumed more soil, particularly during peak holiday seasons. While not definitively proven, scientists hypothesize that soil may act as a natural antacid or detoxifier, helping to settle their stomachs and rebalance their gut microbiomes, disrupted by high sugar and high fat human food. This behavior was not observed in a group of macaques isolated from visitors, further supporting the theory that it's a learned adaptation to their human influenced diet. Now, this is like fascinating on so many different levels. One, I'm very fascinated that they could adapt and discover that eating soil would actually cause sort of soothe whatever problems they were having from the food, because these monkeys are quite greedy. They will come and take your food and water and whatnot, right?
But but don't you think, oops, the first step in this entire story is to tell tourists to not bring junk food there, or to not eat junk food in front of these monkeys, or to not offer it to these monkeys? Like, instead of being fascinated how they're soothing their stomach, isn't the root cause the problem?
I kind of agree. Definitely agree with that. That you know, but also I feel like if these are like city macaques, which I feel there is, they are, because all the photos that I can see are them on concrete and on top of buildings and things like that. So if they're like urban macaques, then they have to sort of live alongside. If this was a nature reserve of some kind, definitely I don't think anybody brings too much junk food into a nature reserve. But like, if this is an urban environment, then that's like we can't impose that. Maybe we can, but I for the most part I don't think we can impose that on the humans. um I can probably draw a parallel to like when we started eating junk food, and we have the antacids and all those other things to like sort of soothe our you know stomachs, and upset stomachs and anything. We have a medicine for that, but these guys don't. And I don't know if the human medicines would work on them, but clearly they're loving the junk food, though, the Pringles and the French fries and all these other things.
But we have to also remember that it's saying tourists. So it's not even like maybe locals, it's the tourists. What they're also saying on the in the article is
Hmm.
that local authorities provide them with daily helpings of fruits, vegetables, and seeds. But tourists come and routinely feed them snacks ranging from bag of chips and
Right.
chocolate bars to M&Ms and ice creams. So the tourists are actually having fun feeding them. and
Hmm.
and I mean, I'm not going to blame the monkeys either, because we love unhealthy food. Like, I mean, everything that we love in food is usually unhealthy. Like, if we are giving really healthy servings, we're like, oh my god, do we have to eat this again? And we've
Hmm.
we've evolved from
Like
monkeys.
we
So
love like highly processed food, highly um you know highly industrialized, highly fast food
exactly.
and all these things.
And I mean, that's the food that we actually think is really tasty. Like,
Yeah,
over all the servings of salad and all the servings of soup, we're
that's
like,
like the
oh,
cheat meal.
I doubt it's a cheat meal. It's like the norm now. And I
Yeah.
think because it's the norm for us, we try to make it the norm for monkeys. And we come from monkeys. So, I mean, they probably love the unhealthy food just as much as we love it.
Yeah, yeah, they have gotten the taste for that. Because also, I think this has been discussed quite a few times, and we have discussed this as well. But like sugar is really scarce in the natural world. We were very, one of our guests, Alexei Maro. He actually explained that sugar is something that is very scarce in the natural world, and our ancestors too used to pile up on sugar whenever they used to, find some sugary source. So these monkeys are probably doing like that is the behavior they're exhibiting when they are like having those food. But I think you have got a point there where the tourists should be more conscious of that those wildlife there, and they should not deliberately feed. I can understand the urge to do that, some chips you're eating or something you're doing, you just feed the monkeys that. But the tourists should deliberately consciously keep their food to themselves. I mean, if there's a snatching or if there's something else out of the control, that's a different story. But more or less, they should keep it to themselves.
Yeah, because there are so many boats across the world in so many places that please do not feed the animals here, or please do not
Right.
feed the monkeys here. And even if you feed, like in India, in a lot of places, like monkeys are considered gods here. So we have a monkey god called Hanuman. Um,
Mm.
so a lot of people do feed monkeys bananas, though. So out of respect, they would bring like the entire, what would you call that entire thing where the entire
Yeah,
bananas are hanging on one big.
that is a good question. I have no clue.
Okay, a bunch of bananas. They
A
bring a
bunch of
whole
bananas.
bunch of bananas, and then they give the bananas. But I don't think I've particularly seen people offering snacks to the monkeys. But
No.
that does happen with other things, though. I think I've seen people offer snacks like marmots in the Himalayas here.
Yes.
Yes, so things do happen where people think that they can offer something and the animal is taking it, and they just feel like, oh, maybe the animal is hungry, maybe the animal wants this. So that happens. But oops, in the article, there's one really, really, really interesting piece. It says humans around the world eat soil, particularly pregnant women in parts of Africa, Asia, and South America, where it is consumed to help with nausea or to provide critical minerals. But the researchers saw no rise in soil eating among pregnant or lactating monkeys, suggesting the behavior is not driven by a need to supplement their diets. So it's
Mm.
interesting because we also eat soil, but probably as way to prevent, again, like if it's for nausea or critical minerals, it's again something that's upsetting your stomach, right? So,
Right.
and the same thing the monkeys are doing. So it was in us also, or it's still
Yeah,
in
no,
us.
definitely. I think in the natural world there is a shortage of a lot of those minerals, as you said as well. Like salt licks are quite popular, and licking this mud and all these things are quite popular as well. But yeah, we have an interesting discussion question here, which says, how has human junk food forced macaques to adapt their diet? And what does this teach us about our own impact on wildlife? And I think we have covered that bit. You know, we it, it's a now that there are more urban spaces, and we have covered a few stories from the urban spaces, from the coyotes to the red foxes to these macaques, and these animals, because we have taken their homes, they have to sort of venture out in the urban spaces. I think that cohabitation and respecting each other in those spaces is very very important. Like, it's of growing importance day by day, because it will happen that those lines will get even more blurred as our population explodes more over the next you know 10 or 20 years or so.
Lions? Where did the lions come from?
No, I mean, our population increases, and those lines are getting blurred of
Oh,
what
the
is like
okay,
their habitat and what is our habitat.
okay. I'm sorry.
So
I heard something about lions and blood, so I was like, where? I thought we were talking about monkeys. We went
no,
to the
but
lion.
lions also, but not exactly lions, but like elephants. There are like so many conflicts with elephants. I think there are some towns in Africa where the rhinoceros will venture into the village or into the town and things like that. So those lines are getting very very blurred. So we have to have those considerations for uh, sharing the space with these animals as well.
Yeah, well, I think while I agree with that, I think with the monkeys, it's not so much as a line blurring. I don't think we had a line to begin with.
Mm,
Monkeys are literally in your face in a lot of places across the world, different species, and they all have the same behavior. They would want to just take food from you or take something shiny from
mm,
you, or you offer something to them. So that relation has always been going on for a long time. But with other wild species, I do think that the line is blurring. But with monkeys, I think the main problem is the feeding part, what we feed and how they look at us. So
mm,
the tourist junk food, like the soil is fascinating study to know that how they're able to soothe their stomachs. But at the same time, we have to understand that why do they need to soothe their stomachs? Like they should not be subject to what we are subject to. Like we already
mm,
have these unhealthy habits. We eat junk food, then we have these antacids, like Oops was saying, or we have some other um what would you say, medicines to soothe our stomachs. But I don't think the wild animals should go through the same thing. And I mean, even as humans, when we eat healthier food, we don't take the supplements or we don't take the medicines. So we see for ourselves that, like a healthier diet is so much better on us, even if it means not so good for our tongue, but better for
mm.
our stomach.
Yeah. I was wondering this when discussing this topic. Like, something came to my mind, and that is like, I think as humans, we have this fascination with like feeding animals. Like, wherever you go, if there are like animals around, either there will be, either there will be, we'll be trying to feed them something of our food. Like you gave the example of marmots or these monkeys, for example, or there would be like a station, like an information center, or like a office where you can get like a bag of food, buy like a bag of food and feed those animals. I think there is a fascination that we have, that any animal we see that approaches us or is close to us, we have to feed them something, or reciprocate them approaching us. I don't know where that comes from, but I feel like it's a pretty universal sort of habit that we have.
I think it comes from the fact that we think, or it's probably from the fact where we feel like maybe the animal is starving, maybe the animal is hungry, or
Mm,
maybe that, because you help out the poor people on the streets also, and the poor
mm,
people can be vocal about their hunger, but the animals cannot be. And a lot of animals, especially like let's say stray dogs, they would come wagging to you if you have like a bag of biscuit, or if you have like a pack of biscuits or something. So
mm,
you do feel the tendency to feed them. The problem
mm,
is when the lines get blurred between something like a stray dog that scavenges from the road and something like a wild marmot which is not looking to scavenge, which is not looking for your food, which alters its feeding habits. So there has to be some line drawn between what animal you can feed and you shouldn't feed.
true. I think that's a good point. Like, um, you know, there is that point of like us giving food to the wolves is what made them into dogs. So I think that's in our DNA somehow that, we offer food to animals and we think that they would be our friends or something like that. But yeah, no, that's a good observation. But I think the only thing here to be done is some caution in part of the uh, you know tourists, and like exercising some sensitivity towards the wild animals. And yeah, that's the only thing that would be a parting thought for this topic. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we will try to get this researcher on board if we can, because it is definitely interesting. We would want to know how exactly does the soil help? How did the monkeys actually find out that this can help and then impart it to the other monkeys? So
Yeah.
obviously, some monkey tried it and then told the other monkeys this is what they should be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting one. Anyway, should we move on to the next one then?
Yes, of course. Okay, moving on to the next one. Is it's a very simple headline and it's from Monga Bay. It says why forest conservation is also public health. A recent study from Madagascar has sequenced the complete mitochondrial genomes of two endemic tuft-tailed rat species, Illyrius webi and Illyrius minor. This genetic data provides a crucial baseline for identifying and monitoring native rodent populations. Field observations reveal these native rats exclusively inhabit intact forests, while degraded areas are dominated by the invasive black rat. This stark contrast highlights a significant shift in rodent community composition directly linked to habitat degradation. Understanding these species distribution patterns is vital not only for biodiversity conservation but also for predicting potential changes in pathogen dynamics across different landscapes. The researchers underscores the ecological impact of habitat alteration on native fauna. So basically there are two types of rats, one only in intact forests, one in fragmented forests, and the fragmented or degraded ones are the ones probably the rats that we are dealing with, and that means that these different rats are the ones that cause probably the diseases and different problems that we have, which is why if we conserve the forest our health also gets better because the genetic composition or the composition of the rodents would also change, right? Oops.
Yeah, I think that is the correct way to put it. And this is, I think this should be a little. I guess this sort of a perspective would be a little more alarming to the people who are generally not alarmed by, forest habitat degradation and sort of encroachment of forest land and things like that. Because this is not that the climate is heating up or the world is heating up, or there's more carbon dioxide, so it can ultimately cause some respiratory issues and things like that. This is more you know more apparent, where these rodents are causing some diseases and spreading some diseases and things like that. And I think rodents is something that is pretty much universally hated because they are so much in number, and they're found almost in every city, nooks and crannies and things like that. um, so I think maybe that hate for the rodents, maybe that could be used in a positive way. And what I mean by that is, you know, if we build forests, or if we let the forests be, then the rodents would not come, which is like a win-win situation for both the parties, I think, humans and the rodents. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really surprising because we do use rodents, so we use like mice in the labs to test on everything that's tested later for humans. It's first tested on animals, and there's still a lot of animal testing happening, and the majority animal testing actually happens on rats and mice. And 90% of our DNA and their DNA is actually, it matches, which is why all the tests are done on them. So they actually sacrifice, or they are sacrificed for us. And still, we hate them with such a vengeance. I mean, they're literally the reason that we are alive.
Yeah, rodents are pretty universally hated, I think. But they're so much in number also, Meghna. Like, it's too much.
Can we say that? I mean, after being 8 billion people, do we get to say that?
I think they cause some infestations, and they have been the cause of some major plagues in the human history, you know. So rodents, I think there is a universal hate for it and universal fear. It's a deep rooted fear because a lot of plagues and lot, like, as we started urbanizing, I think rodents were the first wild animals that found a safe space in our urbanized environments.
And
And
probably pigeons.
pigeons, yeah, rodents of the sky, as they're called. um
Yeah, and
yeah.
I think this is actually the major point in this study as well. What they say is that there are obviously specialized rodents, or generalized rodents and specialized, and this is with every species. So the specialized, or the ones that need certain environments, are the ones that would first vanish as soon as you cut down their environment. But something like a mouse or a rat that we see on a daily basis, they exist because they have adapted, or they have the adaptation skill. Similar with pigeons, and we have a problem with all the animals that could adapt. So even like, say, let's say seagulls, the ones that come and they would irritate you and they would take your food and everything, they're all adapting, and they have adapted enough to coexist with humans. And that is where I think our problem comes in, that we do not want that coexistence. Like, we if we've cleared the forests, we want ourselves cleared of anything that is alive other than us.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's a fair thing to say. I think this fear also comes from, the Black Plague, for example, was caused and spread by rodents. So I think it's a reality that we have to live with rodents, and there has been some studies right now, dealing with New York's rodent and uh, New York's rodent population, and how to solve that problem in New York, the New York City. And I think everywhere we go, we have that problem. So I don't know. There is some ethics around, like what Meghna said, like around like the medicinal testing that we do, or maybe the cosmetics industry, whatever tests they do. There is some ethical concerns around that, but in my mind that line is a little bit more blurred when it comes to rodents. I don't know. I am very selective in certain things, so this is
Um,
one of those things.
or it might just be social conditioning. Oops.
Yes, it is definitely. I mean, if it was like if rodents were responsible for killing like 25 million people in the early, like the Middle Ages, like 13th century, sorry, the 12th century, sorry, the 14th century, the 1347 to 1351. So Yeah, it's a big concern, I guess. The bubonic plague or the Black Death. So yeah, it's. I think it's there in our sort of genetic memory, that mass event that happened, and that was partially due to us urbanizing more and more and us living in these concentrated areas and things like that. But it was also these are like very one of the most adaptable creatures on earth, the rodents. uh, the most adaptable creatures on earth. It's uh, theorized that all the rodents in the world originated from Asia and they spread all over the world. Like they have colonized the world more than that we have. Every corner they have reached through ships and boats, and how else nobody knows. But yeah, they are very good colonizers of land.
But isn't it the same thing with cockroaches?
Cockroaches, there are like different species, different in different places. So New Zealand, we have cockroaches. They didn't conquer the world. It wasn't like it originated from one place and then spread out. Maybe they have because they spread out so early in the times of like when everything was together without the oceans and it was one big land mass. That's when the cockroaches spread out and then they evolved into like different species. So New Zealand, they would have different species of cockroaches. India would be different. America would be different, like that, so on and so forth. But these guys, they actually colonized these places. Like everything originated in Asia and they spread out with us. Hitchhiked on our boats, our ships, and they just bred like crazy everywhere they, they went. So I don't know.
Sounds a little like us. Like, I mean,
They
when
are. That's why they are so used as our you know yeah,
uh, as our guinea pigs
proxy.
to be experimented upon.
Correct. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and I'm just going
fascinating.
to I'm just going to do a quick share of
Mm,
the article to just show you how the tuft-tailed rat looks like. So this is not a normal rat, and this is the Elerius Tanala rat, which has the tuft tail. So you can see the tail here, and it has like a bushy nature. It has fur on
mm,
it, so which is why it's called a tuft, because how we usually say tuft tails for like rabbits and other things. So these are the ones that you actually don't see as soon as you cut down the forest, and you actually see other black rodents. And in the article it actually specifically, I think, also says that one, obviously the animals may be absent because the habitat no longer supports them or suits them, because they're outcompeted by invasive species. So populations may be shrinking or shifting into remaining patches of the world. Um, but also at the same time, it talks about how black rats tend to do well in disturbed environments and near human settlements because they are generalist rodents. And that is why they're okay. But at the same time, they are known to carry a range of diseases, and which is
yeah,
where the problem comes
yeah,
in. So yeah,
yeah.
so
I
one
think the
when
black rat is the species of rat that is the most spread out and seen everywhere in the urban spaces, cities, and things like that. That's the rat, black rat,
yes,
Asiatic black rat.
so which is obviously why this article says that if we really want to have a better health, then we actually need to make more efforts for conservation, because if we have more forests, we would have more specialized species with less disease pathogens, and it would automatically mean a healthier environment for us.
Yeah. So basically, if we let them be in their home, they wouldn't come and invade our homes. Um.
Exactly.
So
Sounds
yeah,
just like that. Yeah.
that's like that's that
It's
I
it
would have
sounds
said like it's common sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the thing that we say to each other. We like live and let live.
Yes. Correct. Um.
Okay.
Cool. that was an interesting one. We will move on to another uh, article from The Guardian where it's headlined Water NSW, that is New South Wales, Water New South Wales, criticized for appalling decision after hundreds of turtles left to die in wetlands. It says hundreds of turtles, waterbirds, and frogs have perished in the Gibraltar wetlands region of New South Wales after Water New South Wales abruptly ceased water flows in March. River ecologist Professor Richard Kingsford described the decision as appalling and absolutely crazy, highlighting researchers having to manually rescue animals from drying mud. Environmental flows, crucial for ecosystem health, were withheld from Kingham Watercourse, a vital habitat for Ramsar listed site. For four Ramsar listed site. Wow, okay. The decision stemmed from concerns about inundate, inundating private land, leading to water being held in Copton Dam. Despite the dire situation, the New South Wales Water Minister stated that government is working to reinstate flows as soon as possible. Now, here the question we have is how can bureaucratic langles be prevented from causing environmental devastation and animal deaths? I wouldn't you like I would have said that the a body like Water New South Wales or the water arm of the local government would have like multiple scientists on board to actually deal with these kinds of situations or advise on these kinds of situations. I don't know what went wrong and they just randomly stopped the flow.
I don't know, but I think, I mean, if you have water in your name, that means you do something about the water. Like, you
Yeah,
don't stop
exactly.
it. You make it flow. Like, I mean, you can't have that in your name and then say we don't have it.
Yeah. Um,
And
yeah, that.
the problem is that humans fight and animals suffer. We've seen this with wars. We've seen this with different situations. But every time the suffering is for the animals, and it's not for the humans that are suffering because someone's stopped some dams. I mean, I think obviously I understand that we need dams for hydroelectric projects and different projects, but at the same time, dams obviously cause a lot of uh, what would you say, a lot of damage and despair to a lot of wildlife across the world, because it's not natural to have a dam in the
Mm.
middle of a river where life just keeps flowing.
I think this was also the decision. This decision was also stemming from, you know, something that would affect us, and that being given the priority compared to these animals. So it says like concerns. The decision stemmed from the concerns about inundating private land. So the private land would have like flooded or overflowed or whatever, and that was why the water was held and wasn't allowed to be released. But I don't know. Again, I can't speak what exactly the decision was taken, whether it was right or wrong. But I do know that the outcome is definitely wrong. That is what one thing I know. I don't know if they could have regulated the water some a bit instead of stopping it. They could have like reduced the flow or something like that. I don't know what are the tools available to them, but the outcome I can definitely say this is not the right outcome. And these people should have like scientists and researchers and conservationists on staff, at least one or two scientists on staff, ecological scientists on staff, to actually assess the impact of any decision before taking such a step.
Yeah, and I think even if you want to take such a step, because obviously you have it in your hand to stop the flows from a dam, then what you do is either reach out to the conservationists or the
Mm,
local agencies, tell them how much water you can actually sent to the ecological areas, to the environmental areas, because there are like 300 turtles or more than 300 turtles that are surviving. So either you slowly, you can reduce the flows but not stop them, or if you're stopping them, then reach out to all the agencies, tell them to home these turtles, bring them out, home them somewhere, or do something, but give like um a warning, as you would to the, like to the humans when you're releasing water from the dams and everything. So you give a warning, you give time, and then you do this, because the animals should not suffer at our cost, just because we have to figure out what is going to be happening with the private land, because they're not on private land, they're in their
Mm,
own land, and they should have access to the water that they are swimming in. And there's actually
yeah.
then one very disturbing video in the, I think,
Yeah, I was
article.
just going to
Yeah.
share it. Just a quick warning, but
Yeah, that turtle's like completely muddy because it has no water, and it's been covered in mud all around. And that's, I think, what the ecologist is also trying to tell us, how it's really sad for the turtles to have to survive. And the turtles are being dug out of the mud. Like, it's not even like they're just on top. They've like literally gone into the mud because they have zero access to water.
yeah, yeah,
And this is I think this is the nice part, where ecologists go in and save them. But when there are ecologists willing to help, why do the government not reach out to them earlier, so it doesn't reach this position where they have to be rescued?
yeah. Like from the looks of it, it feels like it did not have to reach this state, because this looks like parched, like really parched land. This does not look like, it just happened over a few days or like overnight or something like that. It looks really like a parched land, and that means it happened, you know it took some time to reach this state. And I'm sure somebody would have made their protests known to the government, but the government chose not to, you know engage in those
Yeah, and
protests.
turtles are usually like a Schedule 1 species, which means that they're protected at the highest level. And it's really sad that these turtles did not get the same amount of protection, and they could be, um, you know, just one fine day, they could be told that, okay, we're not giving you the water that you need to survive on.
Yeah, yeah. Not even told, like literally just water just cut off. So I think, how can these bureaucratic languages be prevented? I think it's only through research and scientists, and having those scientific advisors on staff. And because, again, for one person, for one politician or one minister to take these decisions, it's not possible, because one person, one human being cannot be an expert in everything. So you have to have those experts dealing with, and you might have experts dealing with the human side of things as well. So you get both the inputs, and you, as the leader of that particular department or ministry, you make that decision, which chooses the best path forward, and which chooses a better outcome for both the humans. I'm not saying that just let go of the humans, but I don't think this extreme of a outcome should have happened as well. I definitely think there was something, a middle ground, that existed, and that
Yeah.
that didn't happen. Yeah,
Yeah, and apart from the scientists, you should also have like local people there, like a representation from the local population who actually see these turtles or interact with the turtles, or know what happens when certain decisions are taken. So even when you talk to scientists, they might not be local. So have some locals also on board whenever any decision is being taken that affects the population there.
yeah, yeah. That's the only thing that we can say at this point. Obviously, this is at the government level, but um, again, this could be a teaching moment for other jurisdictions as well with similar pressures, ecological pressures, and things like that. So, um, you know, if there is something similar happening in a different place or different part of the world, then don't repeat this, what they have done, but also have those advisors on staff, and make sure the locals, as Meghna said, all those opinions are considered before taking a drastic decision. Uh, yeah.
True. True. Yeah. I hope the situation is fixed as soon as possible, and the turtles can
Hmm.
again get their pond, river, water access back, and we'll keep a lookout for updates on the story. But I'm sure
Yes.
that this would get fixed soon because now it's in the news, so there must be some kind of approach.
Yeah, no, they do say that the minister has said that they would restore the water's flow as soon as possible. So hopefully, fingers crossed for these animals that live in those areas. But we'll follow the story and let you know if there are any updates.
Okay. Yes. Okay, then moving on to the next story. Um, Singapore to halt sourcing and breeding dolphins. Resorts World Sentosa, RWS, in Singapore is reportedly seizing the acquisition of wild dolphins and suspending its captive breeding program for its aquarium. Insiders revealed this development to Monga Bay, a move welcomed by animal welfare advocate Anbarasi Bhupal. Though she seeks transparency regarding the existing captive dolphins' future, RWS has not fully or officially commented, but is reportedly forming an expert panel to decide the fate of its over 20 Indo Pacific bottlenose dolphins. These dolphins were originally sourced from the Solomon Islands in 2008 2009, with some dying during transit. Despite criticism from animal welfare groups, RWS maintains its dolphins receive excellent care and that the facility contributes to education and conservation. Staff expressed doubt and the animal's ability to survive in the wild. This decision aligns with a growing global trend against cetacean captivity for entertainment, with countries enacting bans. And for anyone who's been to Singapore, Sentosa is actually on almost everyone's itinerary, like every tourist itinerary to go to Sentosa and see the shows and see the other things that are there. So I think this is a welcome move that they're not they're seizing, getting new wild dolphins and suspending the program. So that is a big step. Obviously, we're not sure what is going to happen to the 20 dolphins that already stay there. It's very similar to the other aquarium, what is marine land, that we have spoken about so
Hmm.
much in our previous episodes. That even when you close down an aquarium or you're taking a decision to not bring in more dolphins, what are you going to do with the dolphins or the cetaceans that you already have? And when people say, and it's really weird, but I mean, most of these resorts or most of these aquariums or these entertainment places would say that their dolphins are doing amazing. But who's going to tell them? Like, I mean, the dolphins can't speak for themselves. And I doubt any animal that can survive in the ocean and is surviving in a small tank would you call that excellent? Oops, like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I would not. I would not. This is definitely, as you said, a very welcome move from their part. At least, like, taking the first step, I guess, towards that ultimate goal. Now, obviously, these captive dolphins, they probably cannot be released in the wild. Probably they cannot be. They're not habituated to that wild environment, but definitely they can be released to a sanctuary of some kind. They can be released
Excuse me.
to like maybe a training area for like a real sea based sanctuary where they are free to explore and go out in the sea if they choose to. Um, so that sort of thing can happen. Um, but I am also thinking, like when you read that part of they are suspending their captive breeding program, I was also thinking of the flip side of things, because captive breeding programs have immense importance in this day and age for species, where we are basically, what we're doing is maintaining a gene pool outside of the main gene pool. And which means if there is such a scenario, which looks like it's increasingly likely, that those animals are extinct in the wild, then these captive specimens can be used to sort of regenerate the population that became extinct from the wild. So
No, but
that
there are
concerns me a little bit.
no, but there are two problems here. Oops. One, obviously, Pacific bottlenose dolphins are nowhere close to being extinct. So we shouldn't have a captive breeding program until and unless it reaches the stage that we actually need them to be extinct. Secondly, when you have a captive breeding program, then it is the same problem as the captive dolphins that are already there. That can you actually release them in the wild? So with cetaceans, I think it's going to be even more tricky than, like, let's say the northern white rhino that was in captivity, and they were trying to mate, and they were trying to breed. So breeding should and captivity should only and only happen if you feel like, okay, we can save this species now by breeding it. The gene pool thing doesn't stand for me. Like right now, if it is not at that stage of endangerment, we do not need to have some in captivity and make them suffer. So we need to
No,
only
but
have the
think
yeah.
about think about it like this. Like, those in that infrastructure needs uh, some time to build up and build out. So again, we as humans, we are guilty of keeping everything till the last moment. So that's where my concern lies. But maybe it's a non-concern, maybe it's not really a concern right now. But I think if they have set up a breeding program, they should not, like, again, it can be
See,
a UN level decision
the
that
breeding
there are five
program.
breeding programs in the world, and those are the five breeding programs that continues, and everything else gets shut down if they want, like, whatever, because obviously the resorts will have their say as well. But there can be a global decision that, okay, five breeding programs all over the world, but completely shutting every breeding program down, that's where my sort of concern lies. Sorry, I went like a little bit further than just shutting down a Sentosa, but like yeah.
Okay, there is one thing about saying that you should keep a breeding program in a resort. There is no scientists that are actually overseeing it. It's just a breeding program so that they can have more dolphins for more entertainment. We need to shut down
Mhm.
those breeding programs. The
I
breeding
think
program
that
that
as well.
you're talking about is actually for the better of the dolphins, and that is not this breeding program. Those are very selective breeding programs that are overlooked by scientists. Here, it's literally talking about sourcing wild dolphins and breeding the captive
No,
dolphins.
but do you not think that I wouldn't believe that, because every zoo, every breeding program has to be monitored by a scientist, by a wildlife zoologist of some kind, because otherwise the breeding programs cannot be a success. Every zoo has the breeding programs, and every zoo will have a team of scientists, not only one scientist. They will have a team of scientists who are monitoring this breeding programs everywhere around the world. So I
But
don't think like it won't, but it is not a sanctuary. It is meant for that. It is not a sanctuary. That I agree with. That part I definitely agree with.
exactly, like in zoos or in this resort, even if there's a wildlife ecologist, they're looking for breeding it again for entertainment. Even zoos are for entertainment, or I mean, we can call it education as much as you want. But to see a captive, animal that was meant to be wild and free, it's not so much of an education, because you can go teach children now. You can take them to an actual sanctuary. You have AI, you have holographic images, you have a lot of things to play around with and actually hold captive animals and show them for entertainment or education. So the breeding programs that you're talking about, which is actually good for the animals, that idea is fine. That where you're saying that there should be only 5 breeding programs, but they should be something that's maybe what do you say, approved by like a wildlife legal board, so you know that the breeding that's happening is absolutely ethical. And then
Mhm.
everything else like this should be shut down, because we do not need this in today's day and age. I mean, if you go out into the ocean and you actually go for these these slow boat rides and everything, you can actually see dolphins in the wild. And why do you need to see dolphins perform in the first place?
No, definitely. We don't need to see dolphins perform at all. We can just have them like swim around or something. That is also fine. Like performance is definitely not on the mind. I think yeah. I quite agree with you. But there has been some success stories of reintroductions in the wild, uh, coming from like captive breeding programs in zoos. Actually, I came across this story, I think last week, where I was sort of reading through some stories and watching some documentaries and things like that. So China actually reintroduced um, Przewalski's horses. Przewalski's horses are the last breed of truly wild horses that exists anywhere in the world. And China actually re-released Przewalski's horses in a desert, where that desert was expanding by immense areas every year, and was causing problems like dust storms and all these other things in the cities. And these Przewalski's horses went extinct from that desert, I think some 20-30 years ago. At that point, like, this was done in the 1980s. And after releasing those after like getting those horses acclimated, because these the temperatures there would plummet, like, very very low in the winters and very high in the summers. These horses were in air conditions roomed in the zoos and things like that, so nobody thought this was possible. But they stuck with it, the reintroduction. And when finally these Przewalskis, this, I think there were like 24 or 24 or 40, I'm getting confused by the number, but a group of Przewalski's horses were released um, in that basin, and within a span of 20 years, they grew to a number of like 500, and that desert completely transformed into a luscious grassland, and the desert is actually shrinking. So that sort of comes to mind when I think of like one of the, and there has been success stories like this. Like, the more I read up on that, there has been a lot of success stories like this with reintroductions of like zoo bred animals into the wild, and changing the environment almost,
Yeah, but that
for
is
the
that
better.
is yes, but that is a small bit of it. And secondly, only if it is actually needed. That is the main part of a captive breeding program, that you should have it only if it is needed to protect the animal. It should not be for entertainment. It should not be because we want to keep a captive animal. It should not be any of those things. It should be
No,
only
agreed.
for the animal. And in this case, I mean, with the dolphins, um the dolphins that are probably bred in captivity, they don't even know what the ocean means, or what the how it is to survive in the ocean. But for dolphins that are being sourced from the wild, I think that is really heartbreaking. I mean,
Yes.
one day you're swimming in the ocean, and the second day you're in a tank, and you probably don't even understand why you're there.
Mm, yeah. No, definitely agree. I think the entertainment purposes, yeah, definitely should stop. They could probably convert the Sentosa world into like a sanctuary of some kind, build some tanks that are more connected to the ocean or something. And yeah, I think that would be a good outcome, like in long term. But I don't know if they are ready to get off all the profits that come from these dolphins. But one can hope But this is definitely a very positive step from um, uh, a,
Singapore.
S- a Singapore and their whatever the resort is, World Sentosa. I'm sure they are motivated by profits, but um, yeah, this is quite, I would say, surprising in some levels, but very positive. So credit where credit is due, actually.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think it's great that there is this growing trend that we do not need cetacean captivity. We do not need to hunt cetaceans, and that is growing across countries. And like even
Mhm.
countries like Mexico, Canada, and France have banned cetaceans from being captive, and Singapore has added to that list. So I think that is great that more and more countries are understanding that we do not need captive animals.
True, true. Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. But yeah, nay, it's a it's a great positive story, and I think we can
Yeah,
move on to the next one. Um, this is I'll do a short and like fun one as well. Um, to break up the zoo. Um, this is also a captive bird that I am going to be sharing with you. But this is a story from National Geographic, which is basically titled "Watch Bruce the parrot defeat his rivals with only half a beak." Bruce, a Kia parrot, missing his upper beak, has defied expectations by becoming the alpha male in his circus at New Zealand's Willowbank Wildlife Reserve. So, researchers analyzed Bruce's interactions with other males, discovering he employs a unique jousting attack using his feet and lower back to defeat rivals.
lower
While
beak.
this lower beak, sorry, to defeat rivals. While this impairment might hinder survival in the wild, Bruce has adapted remarkably in captivity. Kia, an endangered species known for their intelligence and cheeky behaviors, typically rely heavily on their beaks for survival tasks like foraging and grooming. Bruce's innovative combat strategy demonstrates extraordinary capabilities and problem solving skills, highlighting the species' remarkable cognitive abilities. This is so fun. I will just quickly share you know the video where Bruce is being like the boss in there. So there you can see Bruce with half a beak, and see how he attacks the other males there. See how his beak is gone, half a beak, and he is attacking those males like he is in charge. Let's see if there are any other videos. Yep, there is one. It'll be a close up of Bruce. Yep, there you go, with his half a beak.
Yeah, and I think for those who did not know, Oops actually has a documentary on Kias and their intelligence. It was part of our first year student projects back in New Zealand. I mean, for me, back in New Zealand, he's still there. But and Oops, I think you met Bruce, haven't you?
Yes, I have. I have. That's a good memory that I had. I think I also took like a few selfies with Bruce, and yeah, it was a great time there. Even when I was there, this was I think back in 2019 or 2020. Bruce was still around, and yeah, it was a good time there. My film, I think, is available on Vimeo, and probably at some point I'll upload the film to this channel as well. But it's available on Vimeo if anyone wants to see. It's called The Forests. Sorry, it's called The Birds of Play, and yeah, it's about Kia intelligence, as is mentioned in this article. Kias are very cute and intelligent creatures. They will you know, tear your backpack apart if you just leave it there without supervision and things like that. So, yeah, very very cool. That's again Bruce there, you know, playing with the
I
camera.
did want to ask one thing though. If we had Kias as many as we did have pigeons, would we still find them cute if they tore our backpacks?
No, I don't. Even now, we don't when they get up to all their antics. I think we don't find them very cute.
No,
But
people do. People do. I mean, tourists literally come and leave their bags and interact with the kiosks, and they want to film that. Like, I mean, they literally want to see the kiosks do that.
yeah, I think there is the phenomena of rarity and something being rare and something being valuable is, I don't know, ingrained in us. Like all the gemstones, pearls, for example, like it's literally the excrement of uh, the clams, and that we find attractive because just because it's rare, it was rare at some point. So yeah, that is a very ingrained human condition, I would say.
You're right. I mean, if we had a ton of diamonds and gold, then we would be like, yeah, we don't care about gold and diamonds.
Correct.
And then we would probably care about something else that was rarer.
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah, it's always, I think the annoying factor of an animal comes with the amount of population that they have. If they're lesser, we find them cute. If they're more, we find them irritating. But I think it's the same for humans. The lesser they
Yeah,
are cute, the more they are irritating.
I mean, imagine this, like if you live together, then you find, you would have more time to find somebody irritating. And then if you live apart, be it siblings or whatever, with your family, parents or whatever,
You find them
and
cute.
yeah, you find you're so nostalgic about those memories and things like that. But yeah,
Yeah,
i
that's
think i think
that's that's a brilliant analogy. I didn't think about it that way.
yeah. So
Um,
but
and it
anyway,
Yeah, and I think it
sorry.
works out the same for you and me because I think when we're in close proximity, we probably have way more debates and fights. But because we're far away, it's fewer and lesser.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, that was Bruce, and these Kias are very intelligent creatures. You could read up on them. You could visit New Zealand to actually see them as well. Willowbank is a good place to see them, like the natural it's a reserve, it's a zoo basically, but um, they are used for some of the research, and they are all of them are rescued from the wild, from what I remember. So yeah, like Bruce, like he cannot survive in the wild, but here he has become the alpha male, with only half a beak. So yeah, cute and short story there.
Yep. Okay. So we're gonna go across to another amazing story, but again back to the ocean.
Hmm.
It says sperm whales communication closely parallels human language. A study finds. A groundbreaking study reveals sperm whales possess a communication system remarkably akin to human language. Researchers analyzing sperm whale clicks, known as codas, discovered they utilize an alphabet and form vowel like sounds. The structure and variation of these vowels mirror patterns found in human languages like Mandarin, Latin, and Slovenian, employing short, elongated clicks and rising, falling tones to convey meaning. This intricate system, detailed in the journal Proceedings B, suggests an independent evolution of complex vocalization. Project SETI, which has been studying sperm whales of Dominica, highlights these findings as a significant step in understanding cetacean communication, revealing a profound parallel to human phonology in an animal species that diverged from humans over 90 million years ago. How
Mm.
amazing is that? That we had diverged 90 million years ago, yet language can be so similar.
Mm. Yeah, and I think this was I guess, um more highlighted by one of our guests, Maria La Console, and also where she did the experiment with newborn chicks and their response to the sounds of Booba and Kiki. So I feel like as we study more and more animals, we are discovering these remarkably similar things that they do to us, and also like how intelligent they can be, which is very important to highlight. I feel like.
Yeah, and there are actually these memes where they're like the sperm whales are telling each other that, oh, I think the humans are really close to decoding our language, and yeah, so they're like, oh, we need to probably try to find a new language, or we need to find something new to do. And with the sperm whales, actually, the very interesting thing is these clicks are even more predominant, or they're more vocal to each other at the surface. And a lot of sperm whales actually gather together at the surface, and this is where they're really social and vocal. And this is where these recordings have been their voices have been recorded, and that is where we're trying to find out, and we found out that they actually have alphabets and vowels.
That is a great discovery. Again, something on our radar to bring on the researcher if we can. But you were going to play something, I think.
Yeah, I'm just playing the video that it says how sperm whale communication is similar to
Mm.
human language.
You just heard a sperm whale conversation, adapted for our human perception of timing. Whales communicate seemingly slowly, and humans initially thought of their clicks, called codas, like an alien Morse code. But as we examine more carefully, our speech and their speech are remarkably similar. Timing is what makes clicks into vowels and vowels into clicks.
T.
If you speed up whale clicks, they start to sound like a vowel pitch. If you slow human vowels down, you hear beats or clicks. Human languages combine tones and vowels. In Mandarin, for example, the syllable ma can have rising, level, and other tones, each with a different meaning.
Ma, 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 ma.
In sperm whales, a coda can be 1 plus 1 plus 3, which is akin to a rising tone, and 5R, which is akin to a level tone. Like human languages, whales combine tones and vowels. The two vowels we have found are discrete, easy to transcribe with our human letters. Like in Latin, whale vowels can be short or long. They can have rising or level tones like in Mandarin. This makes whale vocalizations one of the most complex in the entire animal kingdom.
That is so cool.
Yeah, that was amazing. What an amazing video by Project SETI. And I think I mean, it couldn't have been a better way of explaining how the bubbles in the whales and humans work. Um, yeah, we can actually share that article, I think, in the pinned comments if anybody wants to have a look at that video again.
Yeah, for sure we can do that. Um, cool. Um, there's lots of stories from zoos this week, but there is another story from the Visakhapatnam Zoo, and this is from the Hindu. It says how Visakhapatnam Zoo keeps animals cool as temperatures rise. The Indira Gandhi Zoological Park IGZP in Visakhapatnam, a vast 625-acre expanse nestled between forested hills of the Eastern Ghats and the Bay of Bengal, is meticulously engaging its annual summer management. As external temperatures climb, the zoo diligently moderates its internal environment to ensure the welfare and comfort of its animal residents. Comprehensive measures include the activation of water sprinklers, the strategic placement of steady dripping cuss mats, and the installation of thatched roofs to soften the intense summer glare. Animals are observed retreating into cooler corners of their enclosures, finding respite. Each species and enclosure adheres to a tailored plan, focusing intensely on ample water access, constant shade availability, specialized diets, and consistent routines. This holistic approach is crucial for maintaining a narrow band of comfort for all inhabitants, effectively mitigating the harsh impacts of the rising seasonal heat. So, again, like zoos and their um, viability apart, this is a good move on their part, on the zoo authorities' part, just because otherwise, these guys would probably die of like a heat stroke or something like that, just because this is not their natural environment.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that you said. Let's not talk about how zoos are good or bad, because that is a debate for another day. But obviously, um, in some ways it can be a bittersweet story in the sense that they're all captive, but at the same time they're being taken care of, and they're getting access to cooler places and water sprinklers and water access. A lot of animals in the summers in the jungles also suffer and die because they do not get access to the water. Obviously that is
Mm,
the natural course of life and that is how it works, but climate change and the way that the earth is heating up, it's actually very unnatural even for the animals to adapt that quickly.
mm,
Just last week or last week, there was an article that said that 95 out of the 100 hottest cities exist in India, and India is really blazing. Like it's really hot, and it's hot, like way sooner than it should be. Like, so May is supposed to be like the beginning of heat waves, but it's gotten hotter way earlier than May this year. And
mm.
the temperatures are going to keep soaring. So I think for the animals that are in zoos, it might not be a great environment to kind of grow up in or stay in or spend the rest of their lives in. But on hot summer months, if they have access to water and cool places, that is actually quite a blessing that other
Yeah,
animals probably might not have access to.
yeah, and the wild, and the wild. So yeah, it's also good to see that they are engaging in that sort of management and careful planning of the entire thing. Um, yeah, it's yeah, the hotter cities does mean that they have to take these steps, um, you know, as much as possible. But yeah, the management is, from the sounds of it, management sounds very holistic and very carefully thought through, and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is a nice. I don't know if it's if it is nice. It is nice in some ways. Short story, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, mm, I think I have only so much to say about it. Should we
Yeah.
move on to the
Yeah.
next one?
Yeah. Definitely. Let's do that.
Okay. The next one is an article from Manga Bay. It says marine resource conflicts in Africa revolve mostly around access. A new study revealed over 1,000 conflicts across Africa within an 11-year period, with nearly 75% stemming from disputes over access to critical spaces and resources, particularly marine ones. 1,000 conflicts in an 11-year period. Wow. Published in
Mm,
One Earth, the research pinpoints underlying drivers such as illegal fishing, changes in benefit distribution, weak governance, and human induced resource degradation. The analysis details how conflicts manifest from industrial vessels entering coastal waters used by small scale fishers to ports encroaching on mangrove restoration sites. The study strongly advocates for enhanced participatory and transparent governance as a critical solution. Lead author Elizabeth Selig from Stanford University underscored the importance of embedding affected groups in decision making processes to avoid future clashes. Without these vital reforms, the study warns these persistent conflicts could significantly derail African policymakers' sustainability and equity goals, necessitating immediate and inclusive governance interventions. And I think this
Hmm.
this is something we spoke about even with the turtles. Like you need to have the locals involved, and here there are conflicts. Like 1,000 conflicts is a really big number, and 75% are from access to critical spaces and resources, and obviously if there is a port coming in where there are mangroves or there are bigger vessels entering where you have small scale fishing vessels, then there would always be a fight because the locals are trying to just survive, and these big companies would come in, they would have a port, they would have these big vessels, and they would probably be exporting most of their catches, and that means that the locals are left hungry, starving, and just in a really bad state.
Hmm. Hmm. I think these kinds of issues are. I don't know who is the person that is or the body that should be responsible for looking at these things and making sure that these things do not happen. Um, you know, these kinds of uh, yeah, things do not repeat itself, or this can be smoothened out once and for all. I would say the government, but um, there might be some roles to be played by the citizens and the scientists as well.
Yeah, and I mean, when the locals are being affected, then as a government, you need to prioritize your people. Like
Mm,
one, obviously, you prioritize your GDP, you prioritize your economy, you prioritize your profits, but not at the livelihood of the locals. You need to
right.
make sure that your people are comfortable and whatever they're doing, because mostly small scale fishers, they do not damage the environment, because their survival literally depends on the water. They actually find the oceans, the rivers, they find them really sacred, and they do not impose such practices that could clear the oceans out of fish, or damage the ecosystem or damage the corals in any way. But with industrial trawling, we know that they just like scrape the entire bed, and there's so much bycatch, there's so much killing, there's so much damage. So the governments need to start, just like governments are now saying let's ban captive dolphins. There should be a let's ban industrial trawling. There should be more and more focus on local catches and local food.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think around the world there is a growing movement of, eat your fish locally, and, seasonal fish and that kind of stuff. There is an uproar in that community as well, where you are, you know, all the sea food that you're extracting out of the sea, you're actually aware of what you're eating, and if you're eating the right kind of fish at the right time. And every country or every city or every fish eating community will have such a tracker, so go check out your local tracker for those things as well. And I think it's the world we have built is one of supply and demand. So obviously the government can do a lot of things with some laws and things like that, but there is a lot to be done on an individual's part as well, what we keep talking about. um, you know Cut the supply side of things or reduce the supply side of things, so that these trawlers don't have any demand to service to.
That is also absolutely true. It cannot be all government, it has to be us as well. I'm going to do a quick share of my screen to just show you how things are going on in Africa.
Mm.
This is actually an effect of the oil spill on a mangrove forest. So this is Koi Creek in Nigeria in August 2010. Conflicts related to oil spills appear in a marine resource conflict database. So this is one of the conflicts that they have recorded because this marine area would have been an area where the fishermen used to go, and
Mm.
now because of the oil spill, it's all dead. It doesn't even exist. So this is one of the ways that the bigger ships have actually caused a problem to the local people. Then there is a city of Takoradi, Ghana, is visible in the background. And if you see, the fishing harbor is full of canoes, and it's a very sustainable way of fishing. They're all canoes. There's no motored boats. It's just all slow, nice way of living life. And then if we see this is Madagascar. There is actually a small scale fisher with a net, and he's setting the net close to the shore as we see an industrial trawler in the distance. So the
Mm.
industrial trawler is fishing off in the distance while the local fisher is using a small fishing net to catch his fish. And this is the
Ye-
local ladies and the fish sellers in the neighborhood, the ones who
Yeah.
actually are suffering.
Yeah, I think individual fishermen can only go so far, and they can only do so much fishing in one day. I think it's no comparison to the industrial level trawlers and things like that. So yeah, absolutely, you're absolutely right. Those kinds of and that is something that can only be stopped when there is a reduction in the demand. That is the only way um we can stop these trawlers, because as long as there is demand, these trawlers will keep on operating. Let's not kid ourselves there.
Yeah, I think that is definitely the thing, but there should be like a revolt at both levels. Like the governments need to say no more. We need to protect our oceans, and the people need to say no more. We need to protect our oceans. So it has to be like a hand in hand, because with the access of food across areas that you do not access, it also affects how our gut and our body responds. Like why a lot of people say eat local is because local food grows in a certain season and is good for your body, because you're supposed to be eating it in that season and not something that doesn't grow locally. And our diets have also been shaped by that. Like if you take the example of just India, it's a wheat eating economy in the north and it's a rice eating economy in the south. It's only because that is what grows there or what used to grow
Mm,
there. So everything should be local. Or something like avocados, if you're in New Zealand, it makes sense to eat avocados because they're cheap, they grow there. But to have
mm,
avocados all the way in India, unless they're locally grown, which is happening now, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have those imported avocados. It's the same with fish or with meat, like all the imported meats. Doesn't make any sense because it's not local, it's not good for you.
yeah, yeah. um I think that's all that we had to say about those things. And
There is one
uh,
short story if you want to cover that. Oops.
oh, yes, there's one remaining. Yeah, yeah, that is the one. Oh, this is a good one. This is from the BBC, and this says one of UK's rarest flies returns to the Cairngorms with the help of jam jars. Okay, the critically endangered pine hoverfly, one of the UK's rarest insects, is making a remarkable comeback in the Cairngorms National Park, its last British stronghold. Facing extinction with just 50 individuals 7 years ago. Wow. Like identifying flies, and that too, like such small flies, and then identifying how many individuals are left. That is some task from the entomologists, but kudos to them. But anyway, conservationists at the Royal Zoological Society of Scotland, RZSS, have successfully bred and released 30,000 hoverflies. This number now almost doubles the human population of the park. The innovative breeding program, which began in 2018, ingeniously used common household items like jam jars and hummus pots to rear the larvae. These containers replicated the fly's natural habitat within rotten pine tree holes, providing a nutritious soup made from pine wood clippings and rainwater. This dedicated effort saw the first wild adult fly spotted in a decade in 2022, signifying major success in preventing the species' loss. And I'll just quickly share my screen to show you guys what this pine hoverfly looks like. There's a beautiful macro shot of of the pine hoverfly. This is what they look like, and they are these are the team of conservationists, um, braving the heavy rain to release the batch of hoverflies, which assumingly is in this jam jar as detailed in the article.
No, it's the
But
larvae. It's the
that's a
larvae.
larvae. It's a larvae, and yeah, it's a beautiful little short story, a success story, a great success story. Like, again, insects, as we have spoken about multiple times as well. Insects in the pecking order, insects come way down at the bottom. Their survival and their sort of conservation. So, hats off to those conservationists, and also like identifying, um, you know, um, that some that those 50-50 were remaining there. So yeah, this is great. Someone in the chat says hi from London. Yeah, this is your country. And yeah, um it's a
Yeah, I
great
think
story.
the ones that are the scientists that are in the field and are looking for these insects specifically, they must be the ones that must have raised the alarm that we don't see them anymore, and there are very few. So this is one of the cases where, like how Oops was saying, that you need captive breeding programs, and
Mm,
he had spoken about the horses, but the horses are big animals that we're talking about, but these are just small insects, and we know how bees and insects and all these little creatures are the ones that actually help the ecosystem thrive. Like, how they say that if we didn't have any bees, we would die. So it's similar with like a lot of insects, and they have their own place in the ecosystem and how they drive the ecosystem. So it's great that they were able to breed the larvae just using jam jars, and then they grew and successfully are now way more than the humans that stay in that park or are near that park, which
yeah,
is a great success story. And we love ending our episodes on, I think, happy success stories.
right, right. Um, cool. I think that's that. I think we can sort of start wrapping up our episode for today now, Meghna. What do you say?
Yeah, for me, obviously, it's my message. I would probably have two things to say. One, obviously, is that have you ever eaten soil as a kid and it did help you soothe your stomach? Like, I don't remember eating soil, but it would be interesting to know if it actually soothes your stomach, like how the monkeys found out.
Hmm.
And secondly, like, how amazing was it for you to find out that sperm whales and our clicks are very similar? Our language and their clicks are very similar. Does it blow your mind as much as it blows our mind? Do you want to find out more? Do you have the same curiosity to actually see a sperm whale in the wild? Because they are supposed to be the loudest animals. Like their clicks can actually reverberate through your body, like through your soul. So let
Hmm.
us know in the comments what you think about all the topics that we covered, and especially the questions that I have just asked.
Yes. And as always, please do subscribe to our channels and follow us on all the different social media platforms. We are on all the social media platforms, the major ones, and we go live everywhere all at once. So wherever you follow us, you'll be able to receive our updates and tune into our live shows as well. It really helps a lot if you give this video a thumbs up. It obviously helps with the feedback, but also, sharing this as much as possible with your friends and family. And if you're listening to a recorded version of this episode, then do consider leaving us a review, a rating. That also helps with the visibility and sort of spreading this message. And share this with someone who might be of the same view about the wildlife and world as you, or might have a differing view. Just share this episode with them, just to have a second view in their arsenal. But other than that, that's it for today, and we'll see you next Sunday, same time, same channel. Have a good one, guys.
Bye bye.